evening, Philippines. My name's Monique Tizon, and I will be your host this evening. For the recap of the major events and newsmakers of the past here at home and elsewhere in the planet. We begin with Mother Nature and her elements of wind, rain, fire, and high heat, laying waste and ruin with the monsoon and typhoons Hana and Goring, leaving roads and highways underwater in regions and cities of Luzon mainland, putting tens of thousands huddled in evacuation centers and destroying crops, property, and infrastructure worth tens to hundreds of millions. Over the weekend in the paradise island of Maui, yet another elderly and homegrown Filipino, or what remains of him, is found in the ashes of Lahaina after an exhaustive search by first responders with help from cadaver-sniffing dogs. The discovery of Salvador Coloma's remains brings to 3 Filipino casualties of the infernal wildfire that razed most of the island in the second week of August. In Greece, the raging waters of a river that overflowed and swept everything in its way and spilled over to the streets, leaving them underwater and residents holed up at home and unable to leave. Halfway around the world in South America and Amazon country, a powerful hurricane or cyclone makes landfall in Brazil to leave at least 21 dead and more expected to be found as search and rescue efforts kick off. Over in the Sunshine State, Hurricane Idalia leaves the city of Tampa and other counties and cities in her path in a mess, leaving them inundated in knee to waist-deep waters and people in kayaks and flotation devices moving from points A to B and putting communities without power and living in the dark. Not to be outdone, Typhoon Goring brings widespread misery to at least 80,000 families or 300,000 individuals in the Cordilleras, Ilocos, Mimaropa, the Central Plains of Luzon, Calabarzon, the NCR, and even as far as Western Visayas. At least 10,000 families or 38,000 people sought refuge in evacuation sites, while 30,000 more shacked up with kin or friends. On the flip side, it was just announced yesterday, September 6th, that this year posted the hottest period of summer on record ever. Yet another proof of Mother Nature's payback over mankind's dereliction to take care of her, and an ominous sign of even worse things up ahead if people on the planet still don't pay heed. And when rain falls without let-up and drenches cities and towns, submerging roads or turning them into rivers, it also brings an unseen killer in the water. A rodent-borne disease, and 3 regions in the Luzon mainland are seeing surges in leptospirosis cases and ultimately claimed 359 lives thus far this year. But while the skies wept and the wind blew hard here, there, and yonder, winning the peace throughout the planet is a far-fetched reality as war is still waged in Ukraine, with Russia ramping up attacks in the air and counter-offensives by Ukraine into Russian-held territories. In Gabon in Africa, yet another former democratic state falls under authoritarian rule, with the latest power grab by a military group that put its duly constituted authority that has ruled the country for 55 years and one of his sons under house arrest for alleged treason. This latest coup d'etat drew alarm and sharp rebuke from the African Union and Nigeria over what they call contagious autocracy. But while military takeovers and armed conflict rage in Africa, Europe, and a more familiar personal rage went on full display over the weekend on a road in the mega city when an ex-cop temper flew off the handle in a minor traffic spat with a biker. Caught on camera up close by a motorist and from afar by CCTV, the ex-cop loses control of himself to assault the biker and pull a concealed handgun on him. His actions have led to a police chief stepping down from his post and a Senate hearing where he is upbraided even more for making false allegations under oath and in spite of receiving the olive branch of peace and forgiveness from the guy he sought to abuse. Yet even as amity and peace remain elusive to countries and personalities who wish or even fight to win it, people of good intentions still persist to pursue, promote, and propagate the ways of peace and friendship. Much like the latest friendship struck between the country and the world's largest democracy. This coming together hits birds with a single stone, a maritime cooperation pact and a deal to supply the country with its staple grain to fill out the shortfall or for more buffer stock. With a measure of food security achieved as a result of the India rice supply deal, the president headed out for a big huddle with the ASEAN alliance in Jakarta to kick off this week. With a laundry list of trade, investment, and economic cooperation concerns in mind, the president would lead the charge for a pact or agreement on proper demeanor in the contested waters of the South China Sea. But first, the president joined all his peers in the alliance for a unified response to entreaty to wayward member Myanmar over its continued authoritarian ways and crackdown on dissenting citizens using violent and undemocratic methods. In addition, the president did not hesitate for even a fleeting moment to acknowledge and accept to chair and even host the 2026 ASEAN Summit in place of Myanmar. Then again, the president, in a powerful message and showing restraint and respect, underscored the need to resolve the growing militarization and illegal expansion, plus the underlying disrespect for the rule of law by the ways of peace and diplomacy. In doing so, the president showed strength and weakness by his declaration that co-ASEAN nations share and the growing chorus of support from elsewhere in the planet. As the 2023 ASEAN Summit and related meetings come to close this afternoon, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. accomplished what he set out to do, and then some. He has put the world on notice of the growing crisis in the South China Sea and put forth a peaceful and diplomatic resolution that has won support from the alliance and from major powers and developing states. Even more, he has closed a deal with Vietnam for a 5-year rice supply deal that checks out the box on food security on the country's staple grain, plus a deal on maritime and fish production and fishermen protection. But most of all, he continues to win the trust and confidence of his peers on the world stage as they troubleshoot and resolve the major issues of conflict by the ways of peace. All these as the Seasons of Peace kicks off with a familiar tune signifying the happy holidays fast approaching.
Whenever I see girls and boys selling lanterns on the streets, I remember the child.
And that's a wrap for this week's recap, and here's wishing you a mighty fine and eventful weekend ahead. And keep in mind to always be kind and keep count of what you receive, not what you give. I'm your host, Monique Tuzon, bidding you farewell for now and hope to see you next week, same time, here on Global Roundup.